Hey, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And the whole purpose of our conversation is helping you as a listener to learn from other people in your quest to create a great practice and a great life. And today I have a dear friend, long-term client, co-collaborator, co-conspirator, Rory Clark. So Rory, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great having you here. And just before, people don't know you, some people outside of Atticus will be curious about you, who you are. So let's just talk currently about who you are and what you do and where you're at from a practice perspective. And then we'll dig into today's topic a little bit. I just want to give some people context of what you've done and what you've built.
I'm a large firm refugee. I originally wanted to be a doctor and then realized that my interests would lead me to probably leaving medicine, and that was a waste of energy. And heck, you'd go to law school, we could always do without one more lawyer. I really didn't think I would practice law, but kind of got into a flow with everybody with me, and I got sucked into that train. I ended up working at large law firms at the beginning, had an epiphany and realized that my first one, that I needed to take more control of my life and my profession. So I started really practicing in the 80s in a smaller environment. Had my first partnership starting in the early 90s where we represented small to medium-sized, closely held businesses and their owners. I did some estate planning and business continuation planning. But as I developed as a professional lawyer, I also had a personal journey. And over those years, I guess really the first knock on the door was having a son born with autism. And I have a second son with a disability. Then my mom got Parkinson's disease, which she had for 14 years. My sister was dead before she was my age from colon cancer. My dad had Alzheimer's for 11 years. And I remember saying to my wife at the time, at the end of one day, I'm a lawyer and I don't even know how to address these things.
You and I have talked about this, and it's a really interesting conversation because you had to kind of declutter your mind with a lot of things that you were either yes to or ambivalent about, and you had to really get focused on intentionally ending and bringing to close certain relationships so you could rebuild and envision what a great life and a great practice looks like to you. And most people see the opportunities, they don't see the hard work of what you're saying no to and why you're saying no. So talk to me about your thinking about that, because it's a really powerful thing. And most people just think that you tumble out of bed and you make this amazing practice and you make these amazing things, right? But there were a lot of hard work, and most of that work began with you decluttering your life of things that weren't great.
Well, that's absolutely, right. And it's been, incremental. I think we have to build capacity to succeed. And that's not just in our firms, but in our own minds. And, an important first step to me was approaching mindset and being open to things. I also have this, you probably talk to people about this profiles. I have this, high I, so I don't like, saying no, or I perceive that can affect, relationships. But at first my thought was, well, if I'm open to things, if I'm open to outcome, something I learned with my son with autism, then that's going to be the key, to success. Because what stresses you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You embrace those things, you face those challenges, you're going to do all right. And that's absolutely essential, that you have to be able to grasp that concept and do those things. But the transformational thing came actually out of one simple book that we read in our DYM program by a man named Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings, which helped me understand that just ignoring things or not saying yes to things or not pursuing things and letting them go on their own was not the same thing as affirmatively ending things that need to stop in your life, whether it's personal, practice, partners, employees, practice areas, whatever. And that what he helped me understand was that if my goal is to help people as a lawyer or help people in my life, I need to be true to what I'm saying, and sometimes that actually requires saying no. And in my personal life, that was very important, and it helped me have a new perspective to closing down that old part of the firm, because that was necessary to allow me to have the space in my head and the focus in my practice and build a culture about these things that we wanted to do. We weren't about everything. We were really going to be, focused on, on this stuff. And so another aspect of that actually that came from DIM was this goal that we're all supposed to be working on a balance in our lives. This is an interesting thing, I think, to talk about, right? So if you were meeting somebody in the airport and they said, "Hey, I've heard about DYM, and what are some of the elements of that?"
So after, most people after a 20 plus year career would not suddenly say no to that career and say yes to this career. And that's really why I asked you on the podcast today, because you and I have had this really incredible conversation. But before I go there, let's just do really basic stuff. So where's your practice?
I'm in the Washington area. We were licensed in Maryland, Washington, and DC. We're a little bit unusual here in the last year. I suspect we'll get to this. We're a multi-disciplinary practice as well. We've got outside the Legacy Elder Law Center, which is a traditional law firm. We have a group called GuideWise Family Caregiver Support Network, which is on the care side. They don't practice law. I don't practice medicine, but we've got nurses, social workers who help do assessments, help people navigate the continuum of life, and they help us do much better planning on the law side because we know where people are and where they're going. And it helps us help our clients see down the road and around the corner a little bit. So there really isn't another practice in our area of the country that's doing it, I think, in the way that we're doing that multidisciplinary, holistic approach.
Let me just stop you for a second, because people who are listening to this may not know what DYM means.
Okay.
So I'll backfill it briefly. So in Atticus, we have different group programs that members can be part of. And Rory, you committed to one of the upper level program, which is a very, very challenging program called Dominate Your Market. And so that's when you reference the DYM as an acronym, it's a backstage acronym that we use for Dominate Your Market. So that's the group that you committed to. You were in prior groups and then you earned your way into Dominate Your Market. You just don't go into Dominate Your Market. You did work in prior groups. You built your practice up. You built your revenue up. You built your income up. You showed the ability to perform at a different level. So you work through, some other programs to get there. So when you get to Dominate Your Market, it's a whole different set of challenges that shift, like you said, your mindset, challenges that shift how you think, challenges that shift how you practice. So I want to kind of set the context. So when you talk about this airport story, or when you talk about it, people understand, what your reference is. So sorry to interrupt you, but keep going. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. And I can talk about, a challenge from Atticus generally, because this may leave Jennifer with, way too much or give us too many rabbit holes to go down. But so, in talking about some of the focus that, or an aspect or a way in which this necessary endings was important to me was one of the challenges that I got out of Atticus was to try to create 175 days off a year where I didn't work. And the first thought was, well, that's not going to happen. How could that ever happen? And then the second is, well, so this is about me um, taking time off so that I don't burn myself, so that I can enjoy my life. And of course it's not. It's about making things so successful that your practice can operate without you, that you're actually unnecessary. We joke in my office all the time that if there's a problem, sooner or later, we're going to realize it goes back to me. And the best way to solve that problem is to get me the hell out of the way. From the non-attorney consultations, 95% of our big work is landed by a non-lawyer in our office. I mean, I'm good at that, but I'll take a meeting that could be 45 minutes and make it 3 hours long. As you joke, it becomes a hostage, negotiation. So, taking time off. So my old way of thinking, my competitive thing is, well, wait a second. If there's 365 days in a year and I'm supposed to take off 175, that means I'm supposed to work 190. Well, that sounds like a loser strategy. I should not work more than I work. So my goal was not work 190 so that I don't work 175, so that if I'm on the golf course, I can actually say, I actually don't work more, I do. But the point of this was that in order to do that, because I realized it wasn't about me vacationing, it was about me being forced to delegate and develop leadership in my firms and create departments so that people could succeed on their own, have confidence, not thinking everything had to be blessed by me, and a good amount of just get me out of the way because I have some pretty old ideas that really aren't all that productive. But saying no to that stuff so that I could empower those employees, help create a culture. And then that led to this next opportunity. Because I had this time to do some deeper thinking and mull over ideas, choosing to say yes to Robert Rose's challenge of creating a marketing strategy for my law firm that doesn't just drain money from the firm, like buying ads on the back of the yellow pages or running TV ads, but actually makes money in the end